There is an old story about a man who was known in his village for being kind. He helped everyone. When someone needed his time, he gave it. When someone needed his strength, he offered it. When someone needed his attention, he listened. People said he had a good heart. And perhaps he did. But slowly, without noticing it, his kindness became a prison. He said yes when he wanted to say no. He smiled when words had hurt him. He stayed silent when people crossed his limits. He accepted disrespect and called it patience. He accepted being ignored and called it humility. He accepted being used and called it generosity. At first, he thought this made him strong. He believed that a good man should never disappoint others. He believed that peace meant avoiding conflict. He believed that love meant accepting everything. But little by little, something inside him became tired. He began to feel anger, but he swallowed it. He began to feel sadness, but he hid it. He began to feel invisible. But he told himself it was better to be useful than to be difficult. One evening, after another day of giving more than he had, the man sat alone outside his house. The village was quiet. The sky was dark blue. The first stars were beginning to appear. And for the first time, he asked himself a painful question. If I'm always available for others, why do I feel abandoned by myself? The question stayed with him all night. The next morning, he went to see a wise old man who lived near a small garden outside the village. The old man was watering flowers when the man arrived. "Master," the man said, "I do not understand what is wrong with me." The wise man looked at him gently. "What troubles you?" The man sighed. "I try to be good. I try to be kind. I try to keep peace with everyone. But inside, I feel heavy." The old man placed the watering jar on the ground. "Tell me," he said, "when someone asks too much of you, what do you do?" "I say yes." "When someone speaks to you without respect?" "I stay silent." "When someone takes more than they give?" "I try to understand them." The old man nodded slowly. "And when your own heart asks you for protection, what do you do?" The man did not answer. The wise man looked at him with calm eyes. Then he said, "A man who abandons himself to please everyone will eventually become a stranger to his own soul." The man lowered his head. He had come looking for comfort. But instead, he had found a truth. The old man continued, "Kindness without self-respect becomes self-betrayal." The man felt those words deeply, because for many years, he had thought his pain came from others. But perhaps part of his pain came from the fact that he had never stood beside himself. The wise man invited the man to sit beside him in the garden. On a small wooden table, there was an empty clay cup and a jar of water. The old man lifted the jar and began pouring water into the cup. At first, the cup received the water easily. Then it became full. But the old man did not stop pouring. Water spilled over the edges. It ran across the table. It fell onto the ground. The man watched in confusion. "Master," he said, "the cup is already full." The old man continued pouring. Water kept spilling. Finally, the man reached out and stopped his hand. "You are wasting the water," he said. The wise man looked at him. "And you are wasting your peace." The man became silent. The old man pointed to the cup. "This cup can only hold what it was made to hold. If I keep pouring into it, the cup does not become stronger. It only overflows." The man looked at the water spreading across the table. The wise man continued, "A human heart is the same. It can give, it can love, it can forgive, it can serve, but it cannot carry everything without losing peace." The man whispered, "But I do not want to become selfish." The wise man shook his head. "Self-respect is not selfishness. Selfishness says, Only I matter. Self-respect says, I matter too. The man repeated the words quietly. I matter too. They felt strange in his mouth. Not because they were false, but because he had not allowed himself to believe them for a long time. The wise man said, You have confused being good with being endlessly available. But even the sun disappears at night. Even the earth needs seasons. Even a strong tree cannot give fruit every day. The man listened carefully. The old man picked up the cup and poured out the remaining water. Tell me, he said, if a person always takes from you but never respects you, what do you call that? The man thought for a moment. An imbalance? The old man nodded. And if you continue to accept that imbalance, what do you teach them? The man looked down. That it is allowed. The wise man did not speak for a while. Then he said, People learn how to treat you partly by what you continue to accept. The words were not cruel, but they were heavy. The man thought about the people who interrupted him, used his time, ignored his needs, and came back only when they wanted something. He had believed that his silence protected peace. But perhaps his silence had also taught others that his limits did not exist. The wise man said, To respect yourself, you do not need to become hard. You need to become clear. The man looked at the cup again. For years, he had blamed others for overflowing him. But now he understood something. A cup must have edges. A life must have boundaries. After some time, the wise man stood and led the man through the garden. The garden was simple but beautiful. There were olive trees, flowers, herbs, and a small path made of flat stones. Around the garden stood a low wooden fence. The man noticed that the fence was old, but well cared for. The wise man placed his hand on it. Why do you think this fence is here? He asked. To protect the garden, said the man. From what? From animals, from people stepping on the plants, from damage. The old man nodded. Does the fence hate the world? No. Does it attack anyone? No. Does it mean the garden is selfish? The man smiled slightly. No. It only means the garden has value. The wise man looked at him. Then understand this. Your boundaries are the fence around your dignity. The man became quiet. The old man continued. A boundary is not a wall built from hatred. It is a fence built from self-respect. They walked slowly between the trees. The wise man said, When you say no with calmness, you are not declaring war. You are protecting peace. The man thought about all the times he had wanted to say no, but had said yes. He remembered the exhaustion that followed. He remembered the resentment. He remembered helping others while feeling empty inside. The wise man stopped near a flower that had been bent by the wind. He gently lifted it and tied it to a small wooden stick. Look, he said, even a flower needs support to stand. The man watched him. The old man continued. Some people will respect your boundaries. Others will be angry because your boundaries no longer serve their comfort. The man frowned. What should I do when they become angry? The wise man answered, Remain calm. Their reaction is not always proof that you are wrong. Sometimes it is proof that the old version of you was easier to use. The man felt something awaken inside him. Not anger, not pride. Clarity. The wise man said, You do not need to explain your worth to someone who benefits from you forgetting it. The man looked at the fence again. It did not shout. It did not apologize. It simply stood. The old man continued. Self-respect begins when your desire to be accepted becomes weaker than your desire to be at peace with yourself. The man breathed deeply. For many years, he had tried to be chosen by everyone. Now he began to understand that the cost had been too high. He had been chosen by others, but abandoned by himself. The wise man turned toward him. "From today," he said, "ask yourself before every yes, am I giving from love, or am I giving from fear?" The man repeated the question. From love, or from fear? And suddenly, many things became clear. In the weeks that followed, the man began to change. Not loudly, not aggressively, not with anger, but calmly. At first, it felt uncomfortable. When someone asked for his time and he was tired, he said, "I cannot today." His voice trembled, but he said it. When someone spoke to him with disrespect, he answered, "I will speak with you when we can speak calmly." His heart beat fast, but he did not apologize for asking to be treated with dignity. When someone came to him only because they needed something, he began to notice. He still helped when help came from love, but he no longer confused love with being used. Some people were surprised, some were disappointed. Some tried to make him feel guilty. "You have changed," they said, and he answered quietly, "Yes, I am learning not to abandon myself." Not everyone understood, but something inside him began to return. His peace, his energy, his dignity. He discovered that saying no to one thing often meant saying yes to something more important. Yes to rest, yes to honesty, yes to inner peace, yes to the person he had ignored for too long. One evening, he returned to the wise man's garden. The sun was setting. The old man was sitting near the same wooden fence. The man sat beside him and said, "Master, I thought self-respect would make me colder." The wise man smiled. "And did it?" "No," said the man. "It made me calmer." The old man nodded. Because true self-respect does not close the heart. It gives the heart a safe place to live. The man looked at the garden. The flowers were still open. The trees were still generous. The herbs still gave their fragrance. But the fence remained. And because the fence remained, the garden could continue to grow. The wise man said, "Remember this. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can forgive and still walk away. You can love people and still refuse to lose yourself for them." The man closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he did not feel guilty for wanting peace. He did not feel cruel for having limits. He did not feel selfish for protecting his dignity. And perhaps this is the lesson hidden inside the story. Self-respect is not pride. Self-respect is not arrogance. Self-respect is not treating others as less than you. It is refusing to treat yourself as if you do not matter. It is the quiet decision to stop begging for respect from people who only valued your silence. It is learning to say, "I can love you without losing myself. I can help you without becoming empty. I can forgive you without giving you the same power to hurt me again." Do not confuse your patience with permission. Do not confuse your kindness with weakness. Do not confuse your silence with peace. A garden without a fence will eventually be trampled. A heart without boundaries will eventually become tired. So be kind, but be clear. Be generous, but stay whole. Love deeply, but do not abandon yourself to be accepted. Because the person you must live with until the end of your life is not the one you are trying to please. It is you. Stand calmly. Speak honestly. Protect your peace. And remember, self-respect begins the moment you decide that your soul is no longer available for disrespect. If this story gave you something to think about, subscribe to Wisdomary Tales for more stories that make you think.